Hi everyone and welcome to this beginner tutorial for Unreal Engine. In this tutorial I'll guide you through the basics to create the stunning environment you see right here. We'll cover how to download Unreal Engine correctly, how to navigate in Unreal Engine, solving shadows and foliage issues, and much more. I spent weeks creating these tutorials for you. My humble request is to watch this tutorial as much as possible so I can complete my watch time requirements and get monetized on YouTube. First, I'll show you how to correctly download Unreal Engine. Assuming you already know how to download and install Epic Games, open the Epic Games launcher. And navigate to the Unreal Engine tab. Then go to the Library tab. In the Library tab, you'll find the Unreal Engine installation section. Since I have already downloaded my engine, it shows a launch button. However, in your case, you will see a download button. I'm using Unreal Engine 5.3.2 because there are some bugs in Unreal Engine 5.4. Let me show you how to download it. I'm going to click on this plus icon. Here you will see the install button. But before installing, we need to adjust some important settings. Click on install. You'll see a prompt asking where you want the engine to be installed. Before clicking install, click on option. You'll notice that the download size is quite large. To reduce the size, scroll down to the target platform section and deselect all the platforms that you won't be using. This saves a lot of storage space. Once you've made your selections, click apply and then install. After the engine is installed, you can launch it directly from here or create a shortcut on your desktop. Now simply launch the Unreal Engine. If you are launching Unreal Engine 5 for the first time, it might take a little while to compile all the shaders. Once Unreal Engine opens, you'll see the Unreal Engine project browser. Here you'll find a variety of templates such as games, film video, architecture, automotive, and simulation. Since we are focusing on environment design, so click on Games tab. In the Games tab, you'll see more templates like first person, third person, and top down. However, our main priority is environment design, so we'll choose the blank template. In the project default settings, make sure to select the blueprint and set the quality preset to maximum. We won't be using the starter content and also we won't be enabling ray tracing. Next, specify the location for your project and give it a name. I'll name mine tutorial. Finally, click create. Now that we are in Unreal Engine, let's learn how to navigate. Hold the right mouse button and use the WAS and D keys to move forward, backward, left and right, just like a third person or first person shooter game. Hold E to move upward and Q to move downward. By moving your mouse scroll wheel forward or backward while holding the right mouse button, you can increase or decrease the camera speed. You can also adjust the camera speed from the settings here. Now let's understand the user interface of Unreal Engine. This is our main viewport. On the right hand side we have the outliner. Every actor in the viewport will be listed here. You can hide, unhide or delete actors from the outliner. Below that we have the details panel. The details in this panel change based on the selected actor. For example, if you click on landscape, details about the landscape will be displayed. If you select a direction light, the details will change accordingly. At the top there is a save button. You can also save your project by pressing Ctrl+S. Next to that we have the mode selector. Right now we are in selection mode. You can also see modes like landscape, foliage and more. Then we have the actor placement panel. On the viewport options panel you can show or hide FPS or the toolbar. The perspective tab lets you to switch views to top, left and right perspectives. You can also use shortcut keys. Moving on, we have the view mode tab. Currently we are in lit mode, which shows lightning. You can switch to unlit mode to see a flat unlit view. I'll switch back to lit mode now. In 90% of cases we won't be using these mode options, so don't worry too much about them. Here we have the content door button. Clicking on it opens the content browser, which functions like a file explorer in Windows. Everything you want to add to your project will be stored here. The shortcut key to open the content browser is Ctrl+space. You can organize your assets into folders, import new items, and access pre-packed engine content. We will cover the content browser in more detail later in the tutorial, so don't worry about it for now. In the outliner, you'll find a folder named Lightining. This folder contains several key elements that shape the lighting and atmosphere of your scene. The first one is directional light. This represents the sun in your scene. By holding Ctrl L, you can rotate the directional light to simulate different times of day, casting realistic shadows and changing the light angle. Next one is exponential height fog. This adds atmospheric fog to your scene, enhancing depth and realism. It's very useful for creating morning mist or hazy environments. Sky atmosphere. This element simulates a realistic sky and atmosphere, contributing to the overall ambience of your environment. Skylight. This captures the sky light and uses it to illuminate your scene. It helps in achieving more natural lighting by filling in shadows and adding subtle light variations. The last one is volumetric clouds. These add dynamic volumetric clouds to your sky, enhancing the realism and visual appeal of outdoor scenes. Each one of these elements can be fine-tuned to create the exact look and feel you want for your project. Proper lighting can enhance the visual quality and mood of your scene, making it an essential aspect of environment design. Let's add a cube from Place Actors panel. I'm gonna go over here, Shapes, and I'm gonna select the cube. Once added, you'll notice 3 arrows pointing in different directions. Green represents the y-axis, red the x-axis, and blue the z-axis. Hover your mouse cursor over any axis to move the cube along that axis. For precise movement along multiple axes, grab the sphere at the center and move the cube freely. Pressing Q toggles the selection mode. Pressing W activates the move tool, displaying movable axis arrows. Pressing E activates the rotation tool, allowing rotation around each axis. Pressing R activates the scale tool, enabling you to resize the cube. Notice how the cube moves and rotates according to the grid with snapping enabled, which moves and rotates in increments like 10 degrees. You can adjust or disable snapping easily. At the top, you can switch between move, rotate, and scale tools. There are snapping options for each tool, one for moving objects, one for rotating, and one for scaling. Disabling snapping allows for smoother, more fluid movement of the cube. To duplicate the cube, hold Alt and drag the cube like that. Additionally, there is a gizmo option where you can switch between world and local space, which affects how transformations are applied relative to the cube's orientation. Let's create a new empty level. For that, I'm gonna go to File, New Level, and select Empty Level. Then hit Create. I won't save anything in this level, so simply hit Don't Save. Now we are in a new empty level. First, we will create a lighting setup. There are 2 methods to do this. The traditional method is going to the Place Actors panel. Under Lights, you can find Directional Light and Skylight. And under Visual Effects, you can find Sky Atmosphere, Height Fog, and Clouds. The newer method is more streamlined. So for that, we're going to go to Window, Environment Light Mixer, click on it. This opens the lighting setup where you can create Skylight, Atmosphere Light, which is also a directional light, Sky Atmosphere, Volumetric Clouds, and Height Fog with just a few clicks. As you can see, we now have a complete lighting setup in just a few setups. Now let's start creating our environment. The first step is to create a landscape. To create a landscape, go to the selection mode and click on landscape. You can also use shortcut keys if you prefer. Now we are in landscape mode. We don't need to change anything except the section size. Change it from 63 quads to 127 quads. Once you've done that, then hit create, and we finally created a landscape. By default, we are in the sculpt tab. Here you will find the multiple sculpting tools, but we will focus on the first 4: sculpt, erase, smooth, and flatten. Before you start sculpting, make sure to save everything by pressing Ctrl S. I'll name my level _main. Let's select the sculpt tool. First, I'm going to decrease the tool strength and increase the brush size. You can also adjust the brush fall off. To sculpt the landscape, simply press left mouse button. To sculpt downward, hold shift while sculpting. If you make a mistake, you can undo it by pressing Ctrl Z. Sculpting a landscape is an artistic choice. The more you practice, the better you'll get. It's a process of trial and error and not something that can be taught by setup. If you want to erase your sculpting, simply select the erase tool and remove the sculpted areas. To smooth the surface, select the smooth tool and make the surface more even. Use the flatten tool to create a flat area for placing objects, like a cabin. Take your time with sculpting. In the Place Actors panel, go to Shapes and add a plane. Scale the plane. I'm gonna scale it to something like 1000 in both axes and position it to represent a lake, giving you a basic idea of where the lake will be located. Now let's download the material for our landscape. Open the Quixel Bridge by clicking on Place Actors panel and then selecting Quixel Bridge. First, make sure that you are signed in. Quixel Bridge offers a wide range of free materials, assets and foliage. To find the landscape materials, just click on Surfaces. Browse through the materials and select one that fits your environment. For this tutorial, I'll use this one, the Rocky Phosphorus material. Click on the material to open it. Choose the quality whichever you like. I'll select the medium quality and click to download it and add it to your project. Before closing bridge, let's change the library path for downloading assets. By default, Quixel Bridge stores assets on the C drive, which might not have enough space. To change the library path, click on this icon over here and then Preferences. Under the library path, you will likely see the C drive listed. Now create a new folder in the drive where you want to store the assets. Copy the path of this new folder. Go back to Megascane library in Quixel Bridge and replace the existing library path with a new one and hit save. Now the assets will be stored in the given location. Now let's return to the engine. Open your content browser and you should see a Megascane's folder. Double click to open it, then Surfaces, Rocky Forest folder. Inside you'll see a material instance and some textures. Before applying this material to our landscape, let me show you how to create a material instance. First, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to name it material. Now I have downloaded some textures from Ambient CG just for example, so I'll just drag and drop them into my new folder. Right click in the folder and select material and I'm going to name it example. Double click to open the material and dock the window over here. You can navigate in the material editor by holding the right mouse button. Open the content browser, select all of the textures and drag and drop them into the material editor. Align them. Then plug the albedo into base color, normal into normal, and roughness into roughness, and ambient occlusion into AO. Next we're gonna add a texture coordinate. You can right click and search texture coordinate, or you can hold U and press left mouse button. Do the same with the multiply node. You can right click and search multiply, or you can hold M and press left mouse button. Now we're gonna add parameter. So for that, hold S and press left mouse button. I'm gonna name it tiling. And I'm gonna set a default value of something like 1. Now plug the both nodes into multiply and then connect the multiply node to the UVs of these textures. Click apply. Now go back and right click on the material to create a material instance. Material instances allow you to control parameters like tiling without re-entering the material editor. Open the material instance and you'll see the tiling parameter that we just created. Enable it and adjust the values as needed. That's how you can create a material instance. I'm gonna delete the example material. Let's apply our main material to the landscape. Select the material instance and then select the landscape. In the details panel of the landscape, scroll down to find the landscape material. Over here you can see that we have the landscape material. Click on this arrow to apply the material. If you notice a repetitive tiling problem, double click to open the material instance. In the global tab, enable the tiling and offset and adjust the tiling X and tiling Y to something like 0.1. The material should now look great on the landscape. Now we're going to add mountains to our scene. So for the mountains, I'll use a 3D mountain asset from Sketchfab. The link to this asset will be in the description. I'm going to download the asset. And you'll get a zip file. Extract it here. And in the source folder, you will have the mountain FBX file. In Unreal Engine, create a new folder. I'm going to name it mountain. And drag and drop the mountain FBX file into this folder. Make sure to create new materials is selected and then hit import all. The mountain asset will be imported. Create a new folder for the textures and drag and drop the mountain textures into this folder. Open the default material of the mountain, delete the default parameter and drag and drop both textures from the content browser into the material editor. Connect the albedo to base color and then normal to normal. Click apply. Now back in editor, drag and drop the mountains into the scene to see the applied material. Duplicate the mountain and use rotation and scaling to create multiple variations. Now let's start placing them randomly to enhance your environment. After placing the mountains, as you can see, they look great. Now we are going to add water to our environment. First we need to enable the water plugin. To do this, go to Edit, Plugins. In the search bar type water and enable the water plugin. After enabling it, restart your engine. Make sure to save everything. Once the engine restarts, open your main map. Then go to Place Actors panel and search water. You'll see multiple water classes. I'll go with the custom one. Drag and drop the water body custom into your scene like that. And I'm gonna scale it up to something like 1000 in both axes. As you can see, the water looks great. The color of the water in your project might be different from mine. To change the color, make sure you have the water body custom selected in the outliner. In the details panel, scroll down a little bit until you'll find the water material. Double click to open it and scroll down to the absorption and scattering color. If the scattering is turned off in your case, simply enable it and choose the color you want. You can also change the absorption color to customize the water appearance. I'll stick with the default setting, so I'll close this tab. Now we will start working on our foreground. For that, we'll need to download assets from QuickZBridge. Let's open QuickZBridge. In QuickZBridge, I have downloaded some rock assets. You can easily download them too. Go to Home, 3D Assets, Nature, Rock, and you'll find a bunch of rock assets over here. Download and add them to your project. As you can see, I'm using these simple rocks for the ground, so I'll add them to my project. After adding the assets, close the QuickZBridge. In Unreal Engine, open your content browser and navigate to the Megascane folder. You might notice these multiple filters over here. If you don't see them over here, just click on these three lines to enable those filters. I'm going to select the static mesh filter and you'll see all the static meshes that are in the Megascane folder. Drag and drop these assets into your scene to start building your foreground. As you can see, we have set up the ground for our cabin. Now you might notice that the color of these rocks is quite different from each other. To match them nicely, select the asset and in the details panel, double click to open the material instance. Enable the albedo tint option and change the color to match the other rocks. Also repeat this process for the other rocks. Now as you can see, that looks great. The foreground is complete, so let's add the cabin. I'm using a free wooden cabin model from CG Trader. I'll provide the link to this cabin in the description. Simply hit the download and make sure to download the FBS file and the textures map. After downloading it, just right click and extract the file here. Open Unreal Engine and in the content browser, create a new folder. I'm gonna name it cabin. Drag and drop the FBS file into this folder. Leave the import settings as they are and hit import all. Next, again create a new folder with the name of textures within the cabin folder and drag and drop the textures file into this folder. Now let's apply the textures to the wooden cabin. Now we're gonna open the material 001. In the material editor, we're gonna delete this default parameter. Then drag and drop the textures into the material editor and connect them accordingly. Albedo into base color, normal into normal, and then roughness into roughness. And then we're gonna hit apply. Now the cabin should look great. Position the cabin in your environment to your liking. Once placed, it should integrate nicely into your scene. Next, we will add and customize foliage for our environment. First, open Quixel Bridge, navigate to 3D plants, grass, wild. Here I'm gonna use this wild grass, which I will add to my project. Now back in Unreal Engine, I'm gonna go to selection mode and over here I'm gonna switch to foliage mode. In the foliage panel, you will see the grass assets that we just imported. Make sure to select all of them and activate them for painting. When you paint the foliage, the default scale might be perfect. Here you can set the minimum and maximum scale values. I will set the mine to something like 1.5 and 2. If you scroll up, and here you can adjust the brush size, paint density and erase density. You can paint the foliage by clicking left mouse button and erase it by holding shift while holding left mouse button. Now let's start painting the foliage where we want it in the scene. After animating the foliage, we will animate it and tweak its color. Open the foliage folder in the content browser. And in the search bar, we're gonna search wind and enable the grass wind and also this one. Next, delete the search term and find the albedo tint option. Enable it and adjust the color to a slightly darker shade to blend well with the environment. Save everything and close the tab. Now you'll notice the foliage looks great with the wind animation. One issue that might arise is shadows disappearing or foliage appearing low quality at a certain distance. We will address this in the rendering part of the tutorial. After finishing the foliage part, let's add an HDRI to enhance our environment's lightning edge sky. First, I'm gonna download an HDRI from Polyheaven. The link is in the description. And also big thanks to these creators. Once downloaded, just drag and drop the HDRI file into your content browser in Unreal Engine. Before using HDRI, we need to enable the HDRI plugin first. For that, go to Edit, Plugins, search for HDRI and enable the HDRI backdrop plugin. Restart your engine, make sure to save everything. After restarting, open your main map. In the Place Sectors panel, search for HDRI and drag and drop the HDRI backdrop into the scene. In the Details panel of the HDRI backdrop, increase the size from 150 to something like 10,000. Next, in the content browser, select the HDRI file you downloaded. In the Cube Map tab of the HDRI backdrops details panel, Click the arrow to assign the HDRI. As you can see, it looks great. You can also rotate the HDRI backdrop to adjust the lightning and sky to your preference. This completes the HDRI setup, improving the visual quality of your environment. After adding the HDRI, we will create fog and mist for the mountains to add extra depth. First, in the content browser, create a new folder. I'm gonna name it fog. Inside this folder, right click and create a new material. I'm gonna name it m_fog. Double click to open the material. Before adding any nodes, in the details panel, change the blend mode from opaque to translucent. In the material editor, right click and search for radial gradient exponential. Then click to add it. Add a multiply node by holding M and clicking the left mouse button. Connect the gradient exponential into base color and also into multiply, and then connect the multiply to the opacity. Now in the editor, add a plane and scale it up. Then apply the fog material to the plane. Now as you can see that the edges of the fog are too sharp and also the opacity is too much. To adjust this, go back to the material editor and then add a depth fade node. This will help control the fade distance and opacity of the material. Add parameters for opacity and fade distance by holding S and clicking left mouse button. I'm gonna name it opacity and fade distance. And I'm gonna give them a default value of 1. Now in the content browser, I'm gonna create a material instance. Right click and create material instance. And I'm gonna apply it to the plane. Open the material instance and over here you can see the opacity and fade distance parameters. Adjust the opacity and fade distance to blend the fog and mist. Now we're gonna create more variants of this fog. So for that I'm gonna duplicate the first material and also I'm gonna close the first material editor. Open the second material. To create variants, we're gonna use noise textures. Open the content browser. As you can see, I have this engine folder. In your case, it might be disabled. To enable it, just go to settings and enable the show engine content option. Open the engine folder and search for noise. Scroll down a little bit and over here you can see tiling noise 05. I'm just gonna drag and drop this into material editor. And over here I'm gonna add another multiply node and plug the noise into the multiply and then multiply into opacity. Now back in the editor, now we're gonna create a material instance of this material that we just created and apply it to the plane. Now you should see a cool looking cloudy texture. We can also animate it. Now to animate the texture, we're gonna open the material editor again. Now in the material editor, we're gonna add panel node to animate the UVs of this texture. Further, just right click and search panel. Click on it. Plug the panel node into the UVs of the noise texture. Now we're gonna add parameter to control the speed by holding S and pressing left mouse button. And I'm gonna name it speed and give it a value of something like 0.01. The fog now looks great. Now let's just start placing the fog in your environment randomly. After placing the fog, as you can see how much of a difference it makes. Now it's time to add final elements like birds, fire and X. We'll start with the birds. Go to Place Actors panel and click on the Unreal Engine Marketplace. Over here we're gonna search Rural Australia and we're gonna download this pack and add it to your project. Once added, you'll find the Rural Australia folder in the content browser. I'm gonna open it, navigate to effects and then birds, and here you will find the Niagara particle system for birds. Drag and drop the second one into the scene. If the birds looks too small, you can adjust their scale. So for that we're gonna open the birds Niagara particle system. We're gonna select this node, and in the details panel scroll down to the mesh attributes tab. And we're going to change the mesh uniform scale to something like 1.5 to 2. After adjusting it, the birds should look great. After adding the birds, we'll move on to the adding fire. Open the Unreal Engine Marketplace again and search for fire. Make sure to apply the free filter over here to find the free fire pack. As you can see, I'm going to use this fire pack. It's completely free, and download it and add it to your project. Now in Unreal Engine, in the content browser, you will see the M5 VFX folder. Click on it and enable the static mesh filter. Drag and drop the woods into your scene and place them where you want. Now I'm going to disable the static mesh filter. Go to particles, then fire, and drag and drop the first particle system on top of these woods. You can scale it up if needed. The fire should look great now. Now we're going to add an X to our project. So for that, open the Quixel bridge and search for X. Choose the one you like and add it to your project. As you can see, I'm using this one. Then close the bridge and drag and drop the X into the scene and place it where you want. As you can see, it looks beautiful in the scene. Now let's do some post-process work. Now first we're going to change the sun's position by holding Ctrl L, moving it to the left to match the HDRI. Next we're going to select the exponential height fog and adjust the fog density and fog height fall off to your liking. Then add a post-process volume by going to the Place Actors panel, Visual Effects, and clicking on Post-process volume. In the Details panel of the post-process volume, we're going to search Infinite and enable this Infinite Extend Unbound. Now we're going to scroll down a little bit, and over here in the Image Effects, we can add Vignette and Sharpen effects. You can also add motion blur. I'm going to decrease the amount of the motion blur a little bit and setting the target FPS to 24. Now that we have our scene set up, let's add level sequencer to animate our camera and render our shots. I'm going to click on this icon and add level sequencer, and over here I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to name it SQS, and I'm going to save the first level sequencer as a close-up shot. Now in the same folder, right click, go to cinematics, and we're going to create another level sequencer with the name of fight shot. Now currently we are in close-up shot level sequencer, so let's add a camera. In the Place Actors panel, search for camera and drag and drop the Cine Camera actor into the scene. Position the angle where you want the camera to be, and right click on the camera into outliner and select Snap Object to View. Now drag and drop the camera from the outliner into the sequencer and set your desired angle. In the Details panel of the camera, change the lens settings from universal zoom to 85 prime and decrease the current aperture to 1.8. We can expand the focus settings, change the focus method from manual to tracking, and then expand the tracking focus settings. Now select your X as a tracking actor. To animate the camera, set it up in the desired position and add a transform keyframe. Now we're gonna go at the end of the timeline, and I'm gonna move my camera over here. Then I'm gonna add another transform keyframe over here. Now we're gonna change the frame rate from 30 to 24, and you can also extend the timeline as needed. Also move the second keyframe at the end of the timeline. Select both of these keyframes and right click, and we're going to change the interpolation mode from cubic auto to linear. Now we're going to add a little bit CameraShake. For that, open the content browser and create a new folder with the name of CameraShake. And in the folder, right click and select Blueprint class. Expand the All Classes tab and search for CameraShake. Choose CameraShake base and I'm going to name it CameraShake. Double click to open it, and I'm going to close the event graph because we don't need it. And over here we're going to choose the Perlin noise CameraShake pattern, and also we're going to expand the tab. Set the duration to 0 in the timing section. In the rotation section, set the amplitude multiplier to 0.2 and set the frequency multiplier to 0.5. Hit compile and close the tab. Now in the sequencer, click on this plus icon over here, CameraShake, and choose the CameraShake that we just created. Extend it across the timeline. Now if you play the animation, you will see the subtle CameraShake effect. Before creating the wide shot, I'm going to recommend you to render your close-up shot first, as we'll adjust some camera settings for the wide shot. Open the wide shot sequencer and drag and drop the camera into it. In the details panel, change the film back settings from digital film to DSLR and the lens settings to 12mm prime. We're going to disable the focus method. Now we're going to change the frame rate to 24. Now to animate this shot, I'm going to move my camera over here and I'm going to add transform keyframe like that. And again at the end of the timeline, we can add another transform keyframe over here. And also we're going to extend the timeline around 384 frames. Add the CameraShake just as before. And change the interpolation mode of the keyframes to linear. As you can see, the wide shot is now completed. Now it's time to render our shot. We'll use the movie render queue, which is the best renderer in Unreal Engine. First we're gonna have to enable the plugin. So go to Edit, Plugins, and search for movie render queue. Enable both of these plugins and restart your engine. After restarting, open the main map and your sequencer. To render our shots, click on this render icon over here to open the movie render queue tab. Before rendering, let's address some common foliage and shadows issues. So first we're gonna fix shadows issue. Shadows may disappear or flicker when viewed from certain distances. This can be fixed using a console command. You can open the console command bar from here and type r.ScreenPercentage space and then 0 and press enter. This should resolve the shadows issue. This command, also along with others, will be provided in the description. Now we're gonna fix some foliage issues. The most common problem with foliage is LODs, in full form level of detail. At certain distances, foliage loses its detail and appears flat. While this can be fixed with the console command, but rendering in real time can be heavy and might crash your engine. By the way, the command is Foliage.forceLOD space and 0. And also will be provided in the description. Instead of using it in real time, we will use it in the movie render queue for high quality foliage rendering. Now we're going to open the movie render queue tab and I'm going to click on this unsaved settings and I'm going to delete the JPEG sequence. Click on the plus setting button and add anti-aliasing. Then we're going to add console variables and also PNG sequence. Now in anti-aliasing, we're going to set up the spatial sample count to 2 and temporal sample count to 16. Make sure to enable override anti-aliasing. And in output settings, you can change output resolution, directory and frame rate if desired. We will use the default settings. Now in the console variables tab, click on the plus icon to add variable slots. The first console variable that we're going to add is r.ScreenPercentage with a value of 0. Foliage.forceLOD also with the value of 0. Then we're gonna add r.ScreenPercentage with a value of 200. This will take the 1920 multiply 1080 resolution and multiply by it 2, effectively rendering in 4K and downsampling to 1080p for higher quality. I'm gonna add 2 more slots. This one is r.MotionBlurQuality with the value of 5, and this one is r.DepthofFieldQuality with the value of 4. All the console commands will be provided in description for easy copying and pasting. Once all the settings are configured, just click on accept and render local. If you encounter any rendering issue, let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for following along. If you learned something from this tutorial, please make sure to share and like it. Until then, see you in the next cool tutorial.